series finale of Star Trek Voyager finally got the crew back to Earth, but in doing so, created a few plot holes that the show never got the chance to address. But Star Trek Picard, which takes place just 20 years after the end of Voyager, and has brought back 7 of 9 into the cast, could take the opportunity to clear up some questions that fans still have. I'm Greg Elliott with Screen Rant, and here's every plot hole the ending of Voyager caused, and how Picard might be able to fix them. One thing we don't know is what exactly happened to the Voyager crew after they made it back to Earth. Because they'd been stranded in the Delta Quadrant, they were able to break some rules that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to otherwise. So having Maquis crew members, 7 of 9 being a former Borg, and Janeway's violation of the Temporal Prime Directive would definitely have needed to be addressed.
I shouldn't be listening to details about the future. Oh, the almighty Temporal Prime Directive. Take my advice. It's less of a headache if you just ignore it.
So let's talk about Janeway. By stealing technology from the Klingons to send herself back in time and help Voyager get back to the Alpha Quadrant, future Admiral Janeway seriously violated the Temporal Prime Directive, which expressly forbids officers from messing with time. And she broke it again by telling her younger self about the future, like the deaths of 7 of 9 in Chakotay and Tuvok's brain disease. So whether or not younger Janeway was disciplined for her and the Admiral's actions, Starfleet would have at some point needed to deal with the fact that the timeline was significantly altered by what they'd done. And since it's set 20 years later, Picard could explore the ripple effects of that timeline shift. Now, we obviously know that 7 of 9 is not dead in this new version of the future, but we haven't heard anything about Chakotay and Tuvok. Messing with time is pretty tricky, so they might have survived too, or ended up meeting the same fate as their previous timeline versions.
She's a Maquis, and in the Maquis, sometimes you have to push people out of your way to get things done.
Ms. Torres is no longer a member of the Maquis. And with all due respect, Commander, neither are you.
Voyager dealt with the integration of former Maquis into Voyager's Starfleet crew, like Chakotay and B'Elanna Torres. By the time the show ended, both crews had put aside their differences and come together, and while circumstances necessitated this out in the Delta Quadrant, the rest of the Maquis in the Alpha Quadrant didn't really get the same chance. While Voyager was stuck out there, the Cardassians and the Jem'Hadar killed most of the Maquis, and those who weren't were imprisoned by the Federation. The ones that were left were still considered terrorists, which technically would include the ones on Voyager, and we never got to see what happened to them. Picard has the opportunity to show whether or not any of Voyager's Maquis crew had to face justice for their prior actions, or if the Federation considered them rehabilitated. It is possible that some of Voyager's former Maquis returned to their old ways upon getting home, or more likely that they integrated back into Federation society. By deciding on an answer to these questions, Picard would finally be able to fill some gaps in Star Trek canon.
What's your designation?
7 of 9, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. But you may call me 7 of 9.
And then we've got 7 of 9, a former Borg drone rescued and rehabilitated by Voyager's crew. And just like the Maquis and any consequences from changing the timeline though, the finale never really addressed what her being a former Borg meant for her after they got back to Earth, leaving fans to wonder if Starfleet welcomed her with open arms or if they considered her an enemy. But Picard has provided some detail on what happened to 7 after the end of Voyager. It's implied that as she still has a lot of Borg tech inside her, the Federation's ban on synthetics might have been what forced her out and eventually into the Fenris Rangers. It's nice to have her back, but there's still plenty of her story to fill out, and hopefully Season 2 will clue us in as to some of what happened. And we'll be here along that voyage, so make sure to keep up with Screen Rant to stay in the know on all things Trek. Until next time guys, I'm Greg Elliott, thanks for watching, and I'm out. Peace.